I'm D-Rock with Zelda Theory, and there are some things I feel Nintendo needs to do if they want to break away from the modern flow of the Legend of Zelda games and keep things fresh, if you will. Do you agree that things are getting stale, or do you think Nintendo should just keep doing what they're doing? Let's get this conversation rolling. In Skyward Sword, it was revealed that Ganon's creation was the result of an ancient demon known as Demise, right? When Demise's plans to conquer the world were foiled by Link and Zelda, he placed a curse on them with his dying breath. His hatred for Zelda and Link takes the physical form of the pig monster Ganon, his Garuda form Ganondorf as well, to destroy the descendants of all eternity. This revelation invalidates any characterization Ganondorf has ever had in the games, especially Ganondorf's well-received character development in The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, where he shows signs of humanity. Now he's just a one-dimensional evil pig and will always be that, unfortunately, thanks to Demise's curse. So here's my idea. A story where a future incarnation of Ganondorf finds out the truth of his origins, right? Ganondorf would be furious knowing all his decisions in the past, present, and future lives were already decided for him by some ancient demon rather than his own choices and violation. So he sets out on a journey, right, ignoring Zelda and Link for the time being to find a way to free himself from Demise and become his own man. Letting Ganondorf separate himself from Demise would then let him regain the character development that I would love to see in the first place. Plus, this idea could be the premise for a brand new Zelda game on the Switch, where Ganondorf could be the main playable character. How cool would that be? I don't know, man. I would love to play a traditional Zelda game where you could play as Ganondorf. Imagine how cool it would be smashing puzzles to pieces and demolishing bosses using Ganondorf's magic powers and his swordplay. Like, that'd be so awesome. Now, one of the good things about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was finally being able to play as one of the numerous side characters in the Zelda series. I think that was probably the biggest thing that I liked about the game. Charging through hordes of moblins as Midna, Darunia, Ruto, Sheik, Impa, and Zelda, of course, was just awesome as a longtime Zelda fan. But in the mainline Zelda series, you could only play as Link, and it's high time we have a game that gives other characters the spotlight, right? For example, we could have Zelda be the main playable protagonist in her namesake franchise for once. I mean, they could take a page from Super Princess Peach and have Link get captured by Ganondorf, and then it's up to Zelda to save the day, so the roles are kind of flipped in a way. The gameplay resulting from this change could see Zelda use her great magical prowess to beat bosses and solve puzzles in ways Link couldn't. Perhaps we could even see Zelda don her Sheik identity once again from Ocarina of Time for some acrobatic platforming and combat, kind of like how she fights in the Super Smash Bros. Series. I think another possible idea here is to have new main leads, which would allow us to play as other races of Hyrule, and I know that Link used Mask in Majora's Mask to transform into a Goron, a Zora, and a Dooku Scrub, right? But I suggest we play as a completely different person born from these races from beginning to end. This way we could experience and learn more about Hyrule's various cultures as someone who grew up from inside rather than an outsider. Plus, I think this would open up new gameplay possibilities where you could never get as a regular Hylian and expand on the gameplay we had in Majora's Mask. Honestly, I would pay X amount of money to play as Gorons in the next title, or Zoras, or Rito, or anything. That'd be super cool. To put a bit more context on the Zelda being playable as Sheik, I always wanted, ever since I played Ocarina of Time, I always thought it would be cool, and I was just talking to a friend about this the other day. I think it would be so cool to have a game where you play as Zelda in that 7-year period where Link is asleep, and basically the game is Zelda becoming Sheik in that 7 years and everything she went through. I think that'd be super cool. Now, this is where I'm probably going to lose a lot of you. Now, one of the biggest missed opportunities of Breath of the Wild was not letting Link talk. I think it is kind of weird that one of the best games on the Switch, which was lauded for letting Zelda characters finally speak, strangely kept Link's mouth shut. What compounds the disappointment further is that Link can speak, but chooses not to because it's his way of coping with the pressure put on him. As confirmed through Zelda's diary entries, which you find in Hyrule Castle later in the game, depending if you go there right away or not. Now, this is my opinion, of course, but I feel like this creative decision, it felt kind of inconsistent with the rest of the game's story and left Link as an emotionless blank slate, which he usually is in most games. Now, that's not to say that this wasn't a step in the right direction, because you could definitely see in some of the memories that Link was distraught or emotional about some of the things that were happening, but I just feel like it would have been super cool if he was able to communicate verbally. I mean, not to mention that it made Link's conversations with the champions in Zelda a little awkward and unnatural, like they're practicing a monologue in front of a brick wall. This was an issue in Skyward Sword as well, where Link was speaking openly to characters, but we didn't really hear or read what he says. Now, Link being a silent protagonist is a pretty big mechanic from when voice acting wasn't possible in video games. However, there were some exceptions, like in Ocarina of Time, where you had the dialogue option to refuse a character's plea for help just to see their funny, indignant reaction. I remember like a couple of scenes where you could literally select something, and depending on what you selected, the dialogue that came after that was pretty awesome. In an era where Mario characters and even Samus from Metroid have finally started speaking, I do believe it's time that Link spoke his own mind, you know? I think it's time to just change the flow of how things have been up to this point. If Link was allowed to properly talk in the games, he could finally have a fully developed personality and allow the audience to relate to him better and understand why so many characters put their faith so strongly in him. But if you wish for Link to remain a mouthpiece for the player, you can give him an expanded version of Ocarina of Time's and Skyward Sword's dialogue options to those seen in BioWare's Mass Effect, for example. Now this way you can still protect yourself as the main lead while Link still gets to have his own voice. You can portray Link as the goody-goody hero like always, or you can have Link act like a jerk for once and tell Zelda to, "Excuse me, princess," like in the 1980s Legend of Zelda Saturday morning cartoon. Now, as cool as Ganondorf is, it can be tiresome to have him be the main villain in nearly every game. Most villains of the series who aren't Ganondorf are either his servants like Girahim and Zant, or a vessel for Ganon like Aghanim. There are very few villains with no ties to Ganondorf, like Link's doppelganger Dark Link, who often served as Link's greatest challenges since he was fighting literally a dark mirror of himself. There's also the evil Minish wizard Vadi, whose curiosity into the hearts of evil men, which led to an indestructible desire for power. The most famous example of a Zelda villain with no allegiance to Ganondorf that we know of is Majora from Majora's Mask. This deranged psychopath transformed innocent people into objects. He tortured and humiliated young Link, and he attempted to destroy Termina Bay by crashing the moon into it, just because he was bored. One of the community's favorite Zelda villains is the underrated Sia from Hyrule Warriors. She was a sorceress who did Ganondorf's bidding to get her hands on Link, whom she was disturbingly in love with. When she realizes that Ganondorf was just using her, she imprisoned him and decided to go after Link herself. I was actually shocked when this happened because other villains in her position would have been begging Ganondorf for mercy. However, she swept the main villain role from under Ganondorf's feet, which no villain in the entire Zelda franchise has never done before. I respected her for that, even if her accomplishment was short-lived and not even related to the story, non-canon. Look, the whole point here is that I think we need more villains that steal the thunder from Ganondorf or have them fighting each other in certain terrains with our heroes caught in the middle. These original villains could challenge our heroes in ways never seen before and force them to turn to unlikely allies for help, like Ganondorf in a mainline Zelda game for the first time, right? We can see new character dynamics between the trio as they work together to defeat a common foe. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, while not as important as the other ideas on the list of today's video, I would like to see more Zelda games where we could explore the outside world of the Kingdom of Hyrule. Most of the games either occur in Hyrule or in an alternate version of Hyrule or a ruined version, right? We rarely get to see locations outside the kingdom's borders like Termina Bay from Majora's Mask, you feel me? This region had all sorts of unique locals filled with interesting characters that gave you fun and strange side quests, like using your mask to form a one-person band or defending a ranch from an alien invasion. It's a pretty cool cutscene and side quest actually. Koholint Island from Link's Awakening is a pretty good example of an interesting location not set in Hyrule. I have some decent memories of spending time with the small community in Maybay Village, helping them with their problems, having conversations with Marin, and playing some of their mini-games. It was really motivating to defend them from the never-ending waves of nightmare creatures plaguing the island. Now, if we venture beyond Hyrule more, we could discover new cultures, new locations to explore, and possibly new villains, right? Perhaps we may even encounter aspects of Hyrule's history that have been lost to time, or remnants of the civilization that inhabited Skyloft. And from what little we've seen from Breath of the Wild 2, it looks like we'll be getting that wish granted pretty soon. You made it to the end, thank you for that. Really, if you found value here today, give this video a like, subscribe if you're new, you know what to do. And hey, listen, click here so we can nerd out on some more Zelda and hang out forever. Let's talk soon, much peace and love.